We have a very fragile system, and on rare occasions that fragility becomes very clear. It is quickly forgotten as we move on to the next thing. Today we are seeing how fragile the shipping industry is as it relies on trade routes that are potentially at risk of failure for more reason than one. This will have direct consequences on you and your investments. Here's everything you need to know. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to talk about the Suez Canal. I don't want to just talk about the Suez Canal and this particular instance, because when we look at this information, we're going to have to understand that it isn't just this particular time or geographically this particular area, but there are so many limitations and bottlenecks all over the place, and once in a while we see an event that spikes the price of oil. Maybe it's a political event, maybe it's something going on with a natural disaster. Maybe you see this happening in this instance here. They're trying to move in and out goods and they can't get by. Well, I'm going to give you everything. I've got satellite images, I've got documentation surrounding it, I've got how this affects your investments, I've got really everything. So stay tuned, let's go. Starting with the satellite images, you could see this from space, what it looks like right now. It reminded me of something from a movie, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, but this is it. I wanted to give you a full breakdown, and you could just see how narrow it's something so important as the Suez Canal. You've got so many different, things moving through here, and you are relying on a very, very narrow area. And it is very clear that in certain cases, this could end up very badly like it is today. Suez Canal blockage is delaying an estimated $400 million an hour in goods. I've got an image to show you in just a second. It will give you an idea of where all those ships are right here. But you could see an estimate of $400 million an hour, and that would be an issue not just for a few ships, a few people. There's a lot moving through here from all over the world. This particular ship was going from China to the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. I think I have that pulled up. But when we look at how much is moving through here, it starts to make you think, what else is going to have a problem right now? Because if it takes weeks, as they say, this is starting to compound, and it's going to do so rather quickly. Sure, there's always delays. There's delays at the port. There's delays, with the crew and so on. But oftentimes we find that this certain instances like this end up being a problem on the consumer end. So you could see the canal's westbound traffic at roughly $5.1 billion a day, and the eastbound traffic $4.5 billion a day. The blockage is further stressing an already strained supply chain. And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this video here, because you can see that everything has been compounding from 2020 into this year, still an issue. We've got issues at the ports, we've got issues with delays in shipments, we've got inflation going on all over the place, and even the raw materials for these products. If anybody's been shipping products anywhere, you know that the raw materials have increased just about everywhere. And that ultimately brings higher prices on the consumer. The manufacturers are dealing with higher prices for their plastics, for their metals, for the wood, and so on. They end up passing that on to the consumer. That is price inflation. And do I need to say it? It's because of what we're seeing with the monetary inflation. Cargo ship block in Suez Canal could take weeks to move. If that's the case, there is going to be a lot of, what we are seeing here really taking a beating, that's for sure. Because if it's a day, if it's 2 days, maybe even a week, it wouldn't be as bad because there's always going to be delays. However, if it's going to take weeks, this is a problem. It's not as if they can simply turn it all around and make it go the other way. A lot of this is going to really put an additional stress that the world doesn't need right now. The ship called Ever Given became horizontally wedged in the waterway following heavy winds. So I had heard that this was the case here from another source as well. That could be, there's indication that maybe this was done intentionally. Who knows? But all I want to know is how this affects the average individual. Nearly 19,000 ships passed through the canal in 2020 for an average of 51 per day. So this is an important area, and we need to factor in how much is moving through. So I've got some data on that as well. Geographically, wanted to give you an update if you're not aware of exactly where this is. So this is Egypt, and you could see Cairo right here, and this is the Suez. So it is a very narrow passage, as we talked about, and this just trying to highlight exactly how long it is, number one, where it is, just to give you a little more broad insight as to what this is all about. This is an excellent website right here, myshiptracking.com, and you will be able to see and track the exact movements of this ship. If you want to take a look, the link will be in the description as always, but right here, it's going from right now, currently the Suez Canal, and the destination is Rotterdam. And like by the time you're watching this video, who knows exactly where it is and what's been happening. But if you want to track it, that is available right here. It reminded me a lot of that Austin Powers scene where he's completely stuck in the middle. It seems almost silly to see that ship in the positioning that it is right now. It's nearly sideways, nearly horizontal, and they said it was the winds that pushed it in this direction. And it just gave me that memory back to this movie. I wanted to share that with you. If you remember this movie, let me know. Braemar estimates the equivalent of 2 million barrels a day of crude and refined oil products are currently stuck at the canal. That's about 2% of global oil consumption. All right, that's big. It is big. There's no doubt about it. It's not as if this is the, where most of the oil is coming through. No, but it does have an impact. Companies including Royal Dutch Shell, Chevron are among those who have chartered vessels stuck, according to the Commodities Data Company. Okay, and it goes on. This is what we can see right now. It is affecting all different kinds of industries, not just the cargo that's on this ship. Remember, they're completely blocking the waterway. So you've got ships all around that are trying to move through. This is what I wanted to show you here, Suez blockade. This is a better description visually because you can see it. Now, if I go right here, it shows you Ever Given right there. And then if we look at how many other ships are just waiting around, they quite frankly are unable to move. They're just going to sit put and stay put and see what happens. There are others, of course, who want to move through. They want to get their business done, but they're simply waiting and seeing. So this is having a major impact on a lot of different countries, a lot of different shipping companies, a lot of commodities, and so much more. Another official with knowledge of the operation said that was likely to take days if you end up in the scenario that you have to remove cargo and then you're looking at a time-consuming exercise. I don't know how they're going to get it from that point and move it off. Where does it move off? And then once you finally get the cargo out, how long does it take to get the actual ship out? Who knows? I'm certainly not an expert at that, but we know that it's not just a matter of, tomorrow this is a fixed thing. This is going to take some time. So they say that there's storms and so on. I wanted to cover what's at the bottom there, though. Roughly 30% of the world's shipping container volume transits through the Suez Canal daily, and about 12% of total global trade of all goods. So you've got a problem with trade already. There's been some delays, if depending on where you're bringing it to. Some of those delays are simply at the port. There's just so much stuff being backed up, and you've got people that weren't working, and there was reduced capacity and all this. But just take a look at, another example, another problem piled onto all of this. It's something that the world, quite frankly, is incapable of dealing with right now, and it's going to have an impact on the prices, because if things aren't getting to where they need to be, that's going to at least temporarily push prices up. So you just remember what they said here: 30% of the world's shipping container volume, 12% of total global trade of all goods. So this is a very important area in the world, and right now, nothing is moving through it. Right away, one example: your instant coffee may soon be at risk from Suez blockage. Europe is most affected as Robusta imports travel via Suez. Coffee makers were already grappling with container shortages. Like I said, you got a problem, you pile this on top, clearly that's going to be an issue. So let's see how the prices of coffee are going to be affected by this. We'll see. Nobody really knows what's going to happen in the coming days. And if it only takes, let's say, a week or two or whatever it is, then, maybe they can just absorb the costs. But if this is something that for some reason is unable to be moved out quickly, then that's going to have a longer lasting impact. Top exporters of crude and products via the Suez Canal. Very first one on the left-hand side, Russia. Then we got Saudi, Iraq, Libya, and so on. So I wanted to give you a breakdown of the countries most involved here. And then we look at the top importers of crude and products via the Suez Canal. You've got India, China, South Korea, Singapore, Netherlands. So you go down the list. This is important because you can see who's moving products in, who's moving products out, and this will have a direct impact on these different countries. There's no doubt about it. Then I wanted to shift into this information. I've got some more as well. You could see here, oil lobby backs climate action plan, and they're talking here about allowing this to take place. Let's put carbon taxes on. Now, I want it to be very clear. When you see the oil industry and the revolving door, just like the financial industry, just like agribusiness, they all have their people in positions of power, as well as the lobbyists, making sure that everything stays the way it is. If they're ever going to implement a tax, carbon tax in this case here, there's probably going to be, number one, when you see it, waivers for certain companies. Then I think there's going to be an alternate where they can invest money in certain things that offset their so-called pollution. All right, now thinking about this, we'll see what happens, but could they get away with investing in ESG funds as a way to offset their carbon emissions? That would be funny, because it's simply an investment in Amazon and Apple and Facebook and all the other tech companies. So I want to see what they do and how they put it through. There's always a loophole that they're going to be able to find themselves going through. And these are the biggest of the big companies. And usually, I've covered this before on the channel many years ago, looking at all of the different waivers that the big boys get. Not you, the big boys. Americans made an additional $1.1 trillion last year on stimulus. Wow, fantastic. You could see the chart there below if you're interested, but all I wanted to note was that these people are not getting $1.1 trillion. Okay, let's be very clear. When you're seeing right now people with their $1,400 payment that they just received, I also covered the fact that 27% of all the income is coming from the US government itself. This isn't really good. When you see on top of that, I'm just covering, the Suez Canal issue. What does that mean? Inflation is picking up. That $1,400 is simply going to be put down on, for a lot of people, it's going to be put down on their debt. It's going to be there to help them survive just a little bit longer. Inflation is going on all over the place. And on top of that, we've got a whole host of issues that have been really putting an additional problem, just another layer on top of everything we have been seeing. And it's truly unfortunate for so many. And their only reaction is somehow more and more taxes. Some $1,400 stimulus checks went to people who didn't need them. Experts say that might be okay. Well, no, it's not. But anyway, the IRS issued $1,400 stimulus checks to about 127 million households so far. Right here just showing you that if the couples were making 160 grand and so on, that's the cutoff point. Some believe that these limits are too high. Others say there are sound policy reasons for the limits. This is important to note because if you see what people do with their stimulus checks, you can be very sure that, look, not everybody needed them. That's kind of foolish to give money to people who don't need it. Now, sure, nobody's going to turn down a check if it's coming. Hey, if everybody else is getting it, I should get it too, kind of thing. But it just shows you how wasteful, how crazy. Instead of canceling people's taxation, say, look, you don't have to pay the tax this time around. It's going through a system that is just completely bloated and it's overdone. And quite frankly, it will only get worse. This $1,400 is not going to make things better in the medium or definitely the long term. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. I appreciate that. If you want to learn about e-commerce, you can do so for free at the AmazonGPS.com. If you want to learn about the financial system, you can get everything in my 2 books, top to bottom. It's all in here. Link is in the description. If you haven't seen this video yet, you absolutely want to check it out. Click it and I'll see you there.